What's happening, everyone? My partner's keeping it real. All right, what's happening, everyone, and welcome to Al Chile Boxing Talk. The whole Al Chile crew is here. We got Sean Gringo Hicks, Run PMC, and my homie Nopal Boxeanos, and we're here, man. There's been a lot of great boxing going on, so we have to cover it, man. A lot to preview as well, man. It's been a busy week, and we're really blessed that we have so much good boxing going on. And so, man, we could get right into it, man. Let's start, man. Let's start with the big upset of the weekend. George Kambosos upsets Teofimo Lopez. This was one hell of a fight. I can't say that anybody that we know saw it coming, so let's get right into it. Sean, what'd you think about this fight, man?
It was unbelievable. I mean, I enjoyed every minute of it. It was very intense fight, great drama throughout. And, a big part of the drama was the anticipation on, okay, is this for real? Or, how long can Kambosos keep it up? Because, honestly, I was second guessing like a lot of it, as far as Mickey Bay, he didn't look like the way he looked against Teofimo. So for him to step up and the biggest moment of his career, kudos to him. And, also for Teofimo to have no plan B and, his father just completely just imploded in the corner with no advice, contradicting himself. It was just total theatrics and what makes boxing great and why we love it. So it was beautiful. And I couldn't get enough of it.
No, I feel the same way. I picked Lopez by stoppage within 7 rounds, and I'm sort of happy I was wrong because I wasn't happy. I wish I put money down on this fight. 13-1 odds. I would have dropped some serious money to make some money. But Kambosos, he deserved the win. He trained. He stayed focused throughout his camp. And Tio, from the outside looking in and now making public with what's going on in his life, he wasn't focused in camp and overlooked Kambosos. So I'm happy that boxing rewarded and they got the decision right, and they gave the guy that deserved the decision the win because he deserved it. He outworked him. He beat Tio in almost every facet of the match, and it was full drama. And this really, since we've had the show, I've talked about how I like the tournaments, and this tournament style really opens up and makes the Haney Diaz fight this weekend so much more significant now. Kambosos is probably going to be ringside, he said. What's another week in the US for him? And then he'd probably get in the ring, and it's also on DAZN. And how about they make it on DAZN? Make it free for us, and it'll get tons of viewers. And it's for the true undisputed, the non-disputed, undisputed lightweight title. So I'm really excited for this weekend, but this fight was awesome.
Absolutely.
I thought it was a great fight, awesome moment in humanity, actually, when you see a guy that's so, his dad's pushing him to be so boastful, and, he makes you believe that he's going to win in one damn round, but instead he goes out there and gets KD'd right away. And, you kind of, the only cherry on top of this fight for me would have been to see them accept the defeat immediately, and just concede that they lost this thing. But the way they went on about how they got robbed and stuff like that, like, come on, man. You can't get nowhere by being delusional like that. The first step in overcoming something like this is to accept that that you lost and now you can improve, you know what I mean? And still really appreciated the fight though.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, there's lots of ways to look at this one, dude. And I got some things to say. When I watched that fight, man, like Run PMC was saying, man, I did not anticipate this. Although there was some things that I was keeping an eye on. Like I told you guys last week, I was concerned about the weight drain. Also, the guy had some personal life issues going on, and I think that all played into it. But I said in our group chat, I said, well, I would still take a 60% Teofimo Lopez over Kambosos. So I underestimated Kambosos. I did not see that coming. I saw 2 of his fights. I personally didn't see anything that I thought that Teofimo Lopez wouldn't be able to handle. I also thought that regardless of how Teo was going into the fight, I thought his explosiveness would just be too much for Kambosos to handle, man. So I'm really happy for Kambosos. I love an upset, and before the bell rang, man, I got to tell you, I really did find myself rooting for Kambosos, and I remember trying to correct my thinking, and thinking like, why are you doing this? Like, you've always been rooting for Teofimo Lopez. Like, why would you just like switch? But one, I like an underdog, and then on top of that too, like I felt like Teofimo Lopez was just getting a little too cocky in my opinion, and so it was really awesome to see that first round happen. And, I feel like it set the tone for the rest of the fight. Like, and, a lot of people have come out and started talking about their scorecards, and, I agree, man. Kambosos did win this fight, but I think I saw the fight a little differently. And I know you guys respect my opinion just like I respect yours. So when I say this, I don't want you guys to think that I'm saying that this is what you guys went through, but I think that first knockdown really set the tone for that upset. Like, when I watched the fight, like I personally didn't see it so wide. Like I had it 7-5 for Kambosos, but I could also see a draw. Like I thought there were a lot of rounds where Teofimo was actually doing good work. But the right guy did win. But I don't think it was like this blowout necessarily. I think that, the momentum was all Kambosos, but I thought that there were a lot of rounds that were kind of close. I also think that Teofimo showed his own power. I also think that he was doing good in certain rounds, especially the first 2 rounds. I mean, obviously I gave Kambosos a 10-8 round in the beginning, but I mean, Lopez had it going on for, a few rounds early with his stamina. He looked crisp, and then he started getting gassed, and we were all talking about that in the group that like his legs weren't there. He didn't have the ability to cut off the ring. Kambosos was doing all kinds of things right too. Full credit to Kambosos. Like this was his opportunity and he took it. There's a lot of things I could talk about regarding the fight itself. Does anybody have anything to add on that before we kind of talk about the dynamics of pops in the corner and all that other crap?
One thing that I want to say is just kind of comment and piggyback on one PMC said that I definitely agree. I was finding myself, like you said, Chicano, as far as being a fan, not just the underdog, but, and like I've said before, I like boxing chaos. What I mean is if we have an opportunity to kind of reset the chessboard and we have these guys, because we saw it, after the fight, the perception is reality. Perception is Teofimo was feared, whether they say it or not, and fights weren't going to happen. Now, with Kambosos, with the belts, everybody's lined up. And for a boxing fan standpoint, it makes, like one PMC said, this weekend's way more intriguing, right? So I love it. This is unbelievable. And it's not hate on anybody. And yeah, I came out and said that I'm not a fan of Teofimo as far as how his shenanigans, and a lot of it was towards his father, but I respected him greatly as a fighter. But I just ultimately want the best fights, and I think this helps us happen.
All right, man. And I'd like to give a quick little shout out to JC and Mad Dog H. Thank you so much for joining us. Run, you had something on that?
Yeah, I was going to say, touching on that first round, it was almost a microcosm of Teofimo's life since the Lomachenko fight. He came out very boisterous after that fight and throughout the leading into this mandatory, and then it just imploded right in his face. And that's sort of like what happened with the Triller deal. He comes out very boisterous. Oh, like, when they talk about, oh, I'm my own boss, bosses talk to bosses, all the typical like new age negotiation out in the public talk. And then that blew up in his face. He comes out in this fight coming out very crazy, very reminiscent of a few months ago of Deontay Wilder against Tyson Fury. Every punch is a power punch, even if it's a jab. And then he gasses out. Kambosos just calm, overhand right, drops him. So I thought it was a microcosm. It was very poetic to see how that first round went and how the rest of the fight would lead. And then that's sort of how Teofimo, we'll have to see if he can recover after this, because it's obvious that he's a very emotional person. So we'll see how I'll save a little bit. We'll see how he recovers.
I mean, that's a great observation. That's what I want to get into next, man. I think that Teofimo, like I said, full credit to Kambosos, but objectively speaking, I have to talk about what I see. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't really want to talk about how I thought this fight was a little closer than other people think, but I also think that Teofimo's state of mind coming into this was a factor, man. I mean, we saw him everywhere, taking photos with people, going to all kinds of fights. I also saw him like doing the press row interviews, talking about his state of mind. And this was after the Lomachenko fight. He was talking about how, and I say this with respect, he was talking about how he was suicidal, and it's like, I really don't know what could be going on in his life. Like he just conquered the world. He's the man at the lightweight division. He's got a good woman, a new house. I mean, any problems had to have been like real quality, like, I don't know, psychological problems going on, because from the outside looking in, man, it looked like he had everything going on, but he was sitting there going to basketball games like the couple days before the fight, showing up, trying to get and I don't know if he was doing it for more exposure, but like to me, he just was not prepared. Like it was all talk, and they're both to blame for this, senior and junior. And also there was a little bit of that pre-mental game going on, and I don't know if anybody caught it, but we did know that the wife had left or something like that.
Right.
And Teofimo Lopez was getting all offended. It's like, you're talking about my family. And some people were like, I didn't hear him say anything about the family. But, to me, when Kambosos said like, oh, everyone's left you, like to me, I thought he was kind of, although he was talking about like the nutritionists and co-trainers, I thought that was kind of like a subtle dig at what was going on in his personal life. And then, Pops, he's just all over the place. He's so unstable. Like, I really don't know what to say about that dude.
Well, what stood out to me, and I think those are some great points, Chicano, like watching the press conference and the weigh-in. Usually, boxing fans, we kind of look at everything, overanalyze, underanalyze. This guy weight drained. What do we see? How was their mindset? I really felt like Kambosos had serious focus, and a lot of what you were seeing from my perception as far as Teofimo was a lot of nervous energy, anxiety, and like he just didn't seem like himself. He was all over the place. And I know, like, to your point, as far as he did have stability with his wife, and he said in a Spanish interview post fight after his English post fight interview where he cut off Kambosos during his moment, and with Claudia Trejo of the zone, and he was talking to Barrera, and he was saying that he was going through a divorce. So he's got a lot of stuff going on, man. So you never want to make an excuse for anybody, but and then I think there was another interview where he was talking all over the place pre-fight, and he had openly said that he was injured right now. So he's got a lot of demons, things to kind of deal with. But I think what's going to be the biggest thing to overcome. And, I, despite what somebody commented last week, I do have a great relationship with my father, and I'm not anti-father, but I think that his business relationship with his father needs to be assessed if he wants to move forward as a fighter. And they already talked about moving up to 140. That'd be great. But if you don't identify the true issue with as far as like his father, as far as being the mentor that he needs in his life to help him as far as his boxing development, bring somebody else in, I think you're going to continue to see some of the same challenges, because he's got so much going on the outside. I'd like to actually see him step away before even taking on another fight, because he's just going to wind up, I think, in the same situation.
Oh yeah, like I think there's a lot of parallels between, even though they don't like each other, between Teofimo Lopez and Deontay Wilder. Both coming in guns blazing, both thinking they're ordained by God. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was Teofimo mentioning ahead of time that he had injuries. Like I used to seek Deontay Wilder podcasts like that featured him because I'm still a fan of his, and and he would often say like, hey man, like during this fight, I wasn't feeling good because of this. Like I don't ever come in at 100%. No fighter does, and I also, when Manny Pacquiao said that he was injured against Floyd afterwards said, hey, don't believe him. I got injuries too. So that's always a factor for me. Like, I think that fighters can either come in at 100% or less, or being sharp on the night or less sharp on the night, so like I said, we can't really give Lopez excuses. But dude, I want to bring up this picture that I got right on the screen. Like, and I want to know if, I got a great set of minds here. Okay, so I'm, and Kambosos is absolutely just enjoying himself. But one thing that I noticed is that, man, he's doing like a tour with all the belts, and that's a great thing. But I always thought that the belts went back to the guy who lost, and that he was going to get shipped all these belts. Like, I don't know if he gets an overnight with these things or what, man. But he's going on a little press conference interview tour with these things. Does anybody have anything on that? Because this is the first time I've ever seen somebody just kind of hang around with the belts.
Yeah, I've always seen, like, this is my understanding. I know you guys know your stuff, but typically after fights, like they we don't see it, but they give the belts back to the champion. If the fight, the other guy won, so they would go back, because I always thought those were actually the belts that were Teofimo's, unless, because that was the whole thing. Like, they were going up there and they had the weigh-in, like the post weigh-in, that they were going there, the representatives of the WBC, WBO, and they were presenting belts, and they had his name on them. I mean, unless I'm mistaken. So unless these are actually like just travel belts, I always thought those would go back to the actual owner, unless they have something else that's set up completely, which you got all sanctioning bodies agreeing to the same thing. Shocker there. that, hey, he's going to show up to the the Haney fight, and then he's going to challenge the winner of that. So I seriously doubt that. I don't see them holding hands, doing kumbaya and agreeing to that. I just think that they had some extra belts. Maybe that's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I've never seen them have extra belts. I mean, to our knowledge, right? Because you could sort of see on some of the belts, especially the WC belt that has the faces on there of the fighters. You could see sometimes when they go up close, it will say with a fight, it will say a past fight of when the former champion, if the challenger wins, of when they won, and they'll have the challenger's face like Muhammad Ali or whoever they have on there for that specific belt. But I always wondered why they just didn't. The sanctioning bodies just didn't have like a spare belt, so they could just give that to the other fighter, opposed to having you carry around someone else's belt that is their property. Because one thing that it annoyed me, it's the only thing I didn't, that I think it's one of the only times I saw it, was when Adonis Stevenson lost to Alexander Vozdik. Then like Lomachenko and him were like, I don't know if they actually cut off Stevenson's face off the belt, but when they're in the post fight, they show them in the locker room with scissors, like cutting off Adonis Stevenson's face off like the little emblem on the belt, on the WBC belt. But it's like that's
Wow.
someone's
Oh
property.
man.
So, and it's also that's to my knowledge, I think the fighters actually have to pay for their belts, or it comes out of their purse. So
They pay fees, yeah.
yeah, so that's what they're paying for. That's part of it's them paying for their belt. So I don't understand why the sanctioning body just doesn't make like spare belts that are blank, so they could like take them on these tours, and then maybe they just keep them until they ship them the real belts. Because it's like the sanctioning bodies make so much money, that's like pennies to them, a few $1,000.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't do that, because
It.
I mean, I would be
Yeah.
pretty pissed if I have my belts, and then they take them on a month tour, and then they're just gone, and who knows if they're going to get damaged or not, right?
Dude, I know, man. It feel like,
Yeah.
somebody like, sleeping with your girl or something, got their hands all over your belts. Like, I don't know about that
And
one.
doing a tour with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what
That's
I'm saying.
Taking it around
Showing
the
it
world.
off, showing it off. Oh, brutal. Well, hey, man, I want to talk about what Teofimo should do moving forward. Dude, there's a lot of options. Like, should he move to 140? And if he goes to 140, who should he fight? Should he do a trainer switch? I want to know what you guys think. Run, let's start with you, man.
I don't know if a trainer switch is necessary. Like his dad should still be the lead trainer. But what I do like, that I think I touched on this a few shows, is what Sean Porter's done in the past is they seek out training at specific gyms. Like Sean Porter trained, he didn't train with Freddie Roach, but he trained at Wildcard for a little bit, and Freddie Roach was in there, I'm sure, giving him pointers. Freddie Roach's assistants giving him pointers. I like same. Sean Porter went to Vegas, trained with trainers out there, Mayweather Gym, Rodney Chrysler out at Hit Factory when that was still a gym. He went to Headbangers Gym in DC and has had Barry Hunter in his corner. He was in his corner this fight. He's had him in his corner for the past and trains with him. So you could pick up little things. Your dad could still be, maybe for your comfortability in the corner, your lead trainer, but you also have different voices that could offer you different things. And Tio's done that to an extent. He brought in Jorge Rubio, who was a Cuban trainer from Florida, who's previously trained Rigondeaux I think when he went to Japan, Rigondeaux fought in Japan. He was his lead trainer over there. So he could bring in guys like that. If you were to do a trainer change, I just don't know, because it seems that he's very much a family man, this being Teofimo Jr. So I don't know how much of that will play on him if he's away from because his dad, like him or hate him, he got him to this point. He led him in life and has got him. I mean, I don't know Teofimo's finances, but made him, at least from purses, a 6-figure fighter or 7-figure fighter, and so it set him up in a good spot in his life. So I don't know if it would be negative for his dad. Like Sean Porter, for a point, left Kenny Porter for part of a training camp and trained out at Snack exclusively without him, and he said it was horrible training and got back with his dad. So maybe their bond is deeper than that, but he can bring in extra eyes that can bring in a camp. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
No, Paul, what do you think, man?
Man, it's hard to say, man. I personally feel like the first person he's got to get rid of is his pops. And I say this because when I look at Teofimo, he looks like a good dude with a good personality that wants to do the right thing all the time. He doesn't look like the type of dude that wants to go out there and belittle his opponents. He don't look like that. That I see all that influence coming from his pops, and this has led him to land on his face. To spit in the air, and the spit fell right on his face, you know. And I think that he should. That's what I think would be his remedy if he wants to be a good fighter going forward. I think that would be his remedy. How you get that done? It's kind of it is kind of hard though, because you know his dad, as Run said, his dad did lead him all the way over here. Although I think that the Lomachenko fight, they just had the perfect game plan and they had studied him for a long time. They should have did this with Kambosos. You know, I think they underestimated Kambosos. They just went in there thinking they were gonna KO him in one round, which they should have done. You know, and so, like I say, I think he should get rid of his dad, but it's easier said than done, you know, being the situation, you know, he might, you know, and I see that his dad's ego is kind of like his dad's living through him. So, you know, I kind of even see all these things where he's been spotted out where he should be focused on the fight instead of going out partying, stuff like that, or, you know, trying to get that trying to get all this promotion, you know what I mean? All this exposure, all this attention. I think that's kind of his dad. You know, his dad's enjoying the limelight and all that. And, you know, he's living through Teofimo. But I really think that he should consider it. I don't think it's that easy, though. Like I said, it's easier said than done. It's not like he can just cut his dad a check and say, "Hey, Dad, you know, I want to be my own man now." You know what I mean? If I want to fail, I want to do it because I set up the wrong game plan, not because, you know, I don't want to be blaming you. You know, I don't want to be able to say, "Hey, Dad, we fucked up because of you." You know what I mean? I want to do my own thing, and you know, I hope that you still support me as my dad, and you know, here's some money or whatever, and let me go, you know, make my own life. You know, it's time for me to do my own thing, you know. But like I said, it's easier said than done, you know.
That's true, but I'm with you, no, Paul. Like I always said that I thought a trainer switch was warranted in this situation, but I always said, well, hey, man, Teofimo Sr. got you to the dance, so it's going to take a loss before that can really be considered. But now we have the loss. By all accounts, Teofimo should have beat Kambosos. In fact, I'd go so far as to say, and I don't know if anybody would disagree, but I mean, the Teofimo that fought Lomachenko, in my opinion, would have beaten Kambosos. Like there are some other factors, of course, but to me, like they both got too comfortable, and yeah, they could both kind of decide to bring it back. But I also think that Teofimo with his dad, they kind of have some delusions a little bit. You know, like it all worked until it didn't. Like you could sit there and say we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, but now, like you know, the frame that Teofimo Sr. views life through, like it's not quite accurate anymore, you know. And now he's tripping about like, oh, you know, I made a mistake. I kept my son at 135 for too long, and it's like, well, you know, you did that for his benefit. They made it seem like, you know, that the people at 140 were lucky, but no, I mean, you know, you were doing it because, in my opinion, and you guys can let me know what you think. Like, I think Teofimo likes fighting like the big man, you know, hitting that guy with that stick as he's coming in, you know, but he likes to kind of be like a lead person. He's not necessarily like a great counterpuncher, in my opinion. Like, I think he kind of likes to lead. He can counterpunch, but it's not his bread and butter. He can slip, but his defense isn't the greatest, in my opinion. He's kind of got also a semi-decent shoulder roll maybe working. On top of that, too, like I think that his inside game is still not improved. I've said this before. Like he can't really fight very well on the inside. He's lucky that Kambosos is also not that great on the inside, so it wasn't that much of a factor. But I saw when they were really close to each other, like I think that Teofimo should have been able to take more advantage. And if they're going like, you know, in those brief exchanges of toe to toe, like, I don't know, man, like he's not going to be a power puncher at 140. So I think he absolutely has to move up, like he said. And then if you're at 140, well, what are you going to do? Like you could keep your dad and you could both say, okay, well, let's get serious, you know, and you know, we'll do a camp. But it's like, you got to be very careful about who you pick because, you know, we mentioned this, I think a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about fighters who could possibly move up. Like I did say that I think he could do good work at 140. And I still think that, but I think he absolutely needs a tune-up. I would not take a fight against a top contender. I certainly wouldn't think about trying to fight Josh Taylor, although I know he couldn't get that fight. I think he needs like a lower level, like maybe top 10, like or even lower, like somebody with a name like Barrios. I think he should stay away from people that are crafty. He's got to get used to this idea that he's not going to be able to be the big guy anymore because a lot of fighters are going to be his size or taller or have more reach moving forward. So he's got to adjust. And I don't know if Senior's the guy to show him like how to make this adjustment because from now on, like these guys are going to be bigger.
That's a great point. A lot of things you said, especially as far as initially hearing that, because you never want to discredit what Kambosos did, but the same Teofimo that fought Lomachenko had way better footwork and definitely better head movement. So that standpoint alone, I definitely agree with you. and that fighter just wasn't there. So it's one thing to not make, actual adjustments, but it's another not to have the same footwork or head movement. And then the exchanges that they had, I thought there was no way that Kambosos would get the better of him in some of those exchanges where, Kambosos, again, credit to him, he had a way better chin. In regards of what I think, I don't think anything's going to change, to be honest. I think you are who you are at the end of the day. And, I hope that I'm wrong. I think the only way there'd actually be a change, that it have to be implemented and talk about from the promotional side. I think Teofimo and his father, do have a good connection, and they did get to the point together that Top Rank would actually have to threaten dropping them for them to be implemented of some sort of change. Because I just don't have faith they would do that. I think the closest thing would be what was said by Run PMC, where they would visit gyms and get other perspectives and other recommendations on how to get into being more defensive and improve, especially moving up, because you're not going to be the bully anymore. You're going to be fighting guys bigger, like you said, Chicano. So a change needs to be made. I just don't think it will. And for that reason, it does have me concerned for Teofimo going forward. Still a talent, but adjustments need to be made. I just don't think they will be.
Yeah, it gets me thinking about trainers or fighters that have been trained by their dads, and a guy that I enjoyed watching at least earlier on his career, who I thought was always came to fight, but really lacked that next step in his career, was Danny Garcia, and I sort of see this as a similarity, because Danny Garcia did lose to Sean Porter, close fight, did lose to Keith Thurman, close fight. His probably worst loss he got beat up in was like beat up actually, because he lost to Herrera in my opinion, but his worst was against Spence this past fight. But he still landed some punches. But Danny Garcia, when he moved up in weight classes, didn't have the one pop power that we saw at 140. That left hook wasn't carrying as much weight. Like he did stop Brandon Rios, who was shot at that point. He did beat Paulie Malignaggi by TKO. He couldn't even drop Paulie. But are we going to see that with Tio? And I think about it's like, if we were to stop now and just say like give Tio a few good fights, but he never gets that next marquee fight, like Danny Garcia never got really a marquee win after the Amir Khan win. Who's really going to have a better career? Because it's like we look at Tio as like having these skills and being more athletic and stuff, and Danny's flat-footed. But Danny's pretty consistent, and we've seen inconsistency from Teofimo, at least in his last few fights. At least Danny comes consistently. You know you're going to get with him. He never gives up. Not saying Teo did give up, but he always comes ready to fight, and he just is who he is. So it's going to be that was an interesting thing I thought about, just like when we were mentioning when the last round we're mentioning what he's going to do in the next career. And for me, I don't really know what he's going to do. I mean, like I said in the comments, it's like people are mentioning Chon Sabeda. That's danger for him. He should stay away.
Oh
Stay away.
yeah.
Chone packs power. He might not look that imposing, but he obviously carries power. He knows how to deliver his punches properly. Very fundamental boxer. Then someone, Mad Dog H, mentioned Hank Lundy. I think it would be a better fight. Like if you go on like a Hank Lundy level, Mike Dallas doesn't fight anymore, but like it was like a Mike Dallas Jr. level, like those type of guys. You come back, and I mentioned in there, what about like if depending on how much he's, because I think Tio's going to be out a while with the cut and just getting his life in order. Maybe you have a crossroads fight between him and Josue Vargas, and then you just have a
Ooh.
crossroads fight between both guys are coming off losses. I don't know. Depending, I would think they value Tio over Josue, so they might be like, Josue, we're either gonna drop you or get this fight, and it's like, how are you gonna not take a Teofimo fight, especially when the most vulnerable time he's had been in his career? So I could see him fighting someone like that or someone a lower guy on their roster, because there's no way he could handle Ramirez at this point just mentally, and Ramirez is moving up anyway because he's a big 140 anyway. So it's like I don't really know who else they have on their roster at this point.
Man, that'd be, man, talk about a comeback fighter for, I like that Run PMC. Man, let's get that locked in. That'd be
Yeah.
really great. And let's go ahead and make it, because you got two New Yorkers, two New York
Yes.
guys, put that right in New York. And man, but can we handle that press conference? Because that press conference is going to be off the chain.
Hey,
Between the
all,
two
all,
pads.
all the best for the promotion. All the best. Like it's a comeback fight, crossroads fight. All the best. And
No,
it's like they would never say it, but it's like winner gets dropped, loser keeps going with us. They would never say that, but
you get dropped, or we don't stop promoting you. I love it, but it has to be something like that. So like
yeah.
Cepeda, I have a high opinion of Cepeda, like
Yes.
for real. So if that's the comeback fight they come to at 140, let's just hope that they're ready. And one name of a guy, ironically, I know that he's actually trained there before because he spars in Florida sometimes. is ironically, I think the guy across the corner would be a good consultant, and the guy, Coach Sentinel, I think would be a good mentor. I like he's very zen-like in his approach of coaching, and he teaches a lot of patience and especially a lot of the fundamentals and nuances and strategy, which I think would be a good contrast for his dad, which is more cheerleader and, just get him fucking out of there already. So I think that would be, and I could see that happening because I know that Teofimo's gone there and sparred before. But that would never happen. Well, if he moves up to 140 and stays there, then I guess it would. But I think that'd be not realistic. But I think as far as as far as philosophy, I think that would be a good thing to see. But you never know.
That would be a very much like Lennox Lewis going to Emmanuel Stewart after his Oliver McCall loss, and Emmanuel Stewart was in McCall's corner for that fight. So that'd be very much like that. And it's like if they're not in the same weight class, then how about you move a training camp out there and you're training against if their egos can handle it, you're training alongside the guy that beat you. And then if anyone, they're the ones that'll be able to tell you the weaknesses. But it's like, will there be a conflict of interest? How does Kambosos do with this weight? Does he want to move up to 140? Because if he wants to move up to 140 within the next few years, then I don't know if the trainer would be open to that if he's still going to move forward with Kambosos though. Because it's how many trade secrets are you going to give up, right?
No, I mean, that's a great point. I'll just I see what you're seeing. Run PMC. I was saying from the standpoint because I know he's going through a divorce, not putting this stuff out there, but is he still going to live in Las Vegas? That's what I'm saying. He really has a lot of life decisions to make.
Right.
So if he moves out of Las Vegas and he moves to Florida, I know he has a lot of family there, and he moves to Miami, like David, Florida. They have a lot of gyms out there, and not just because. I know Coach Sentinel, and I have a high opinion of him, but his track record shows for itself. I mean, you could say he's trainer of the year. And they have great sparring there. A lot of people, Daniel Jacobs goes there all the time. Adrian Broner. I know his career is not what it was, but I mean, you have good sparring. Xander Zayas is there. We all think highly of him. Just, great sparring up in that.
Yeah, and if you stick to the state of Florida, you have Kevin Cunningham down there. That I don't know what he would. I don't really know because it seems like Kevin Cunningham, the way he trains a lot of lefties. So I don't know if that would really fit the bill for him, like being Corey Spinks, Devin Alexander, and now Erickson Lubin. He trains a lot of lefties, sort of those a little bit bigger than him. But I think you can always take at least one thing from a trainer. So whether it's him,
definitely.
Yeah, whether it's Pedro Diaz too is down there as well. So anything.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was saying. If he kind of went on and we were kind of giving him a hard time, AJ's, speed dating tour. But if he kind of went something similar to that and went to different coaches, like a Virgil Hunter, talked to everybody and got a piece of it, and got some recommendations because people see the talent, and I'm sure they would love to work for him. And that's what coaching and training you do. You want to develop and take somebody's talent to the next level. Like, oh man, if I had him, I would do this. He needs to take advantage of that. I mean, because the blueprint is there of what he can potentially do. We all seen his potential. I mean, he can go to unbelievable heights, but with him potentially, moving up, and it seems like that's a foregone conclusion. He's got to implement somebody in his life, and why not several?
I mean, yeah, he might have to move because I know he's got this beautiful new home, and he could move, in my opinion. Like, it'd be smart too. Like, I know he has his own personal gym, but I mean, now it's going to be a big lonely house. And if he can't get the training that he wants, like if his dad wants to stay in Vegas, I don't think that house is in Vegas. I've seen it. Like, I don't recall where it's at, but I don't think that the house is in Vegas. And so he could do with having like a good camp around him, good people. I mean, I hope the best for him, and I'm looking forward to seeing him get back in the gym quickly. I'd like to see him fight again because I want more film on him to see, what I think about his future at 140 and beyond. Like I had really high hopes for Teofimo Lopez, and now I'm just a little more reserved. Like I want to know if his power carries up. I do think that his stamina will improve being at 140, but I mean, if he's not this explosive power puncher and he doesn't have the volume that he needs to have, and he's keeping his hands down and he's not jabbing as much as he should, these are all concerns that I have, so I want to see more film on him. I want to see if he can improve because he's still very young, and I do consider him to be athletic. So I'm definitely not writing him off.
No, there's just too much talent there and too much potential. And like I said, he's done it. That's the difference. He's under 25 and he's done it. So he it was his first titled events, 11 months. and things just totally imploded. But on the outside, he just needs to get that balance, and hopefully somebody can help him come in and make that happen.
Oh yeah. And now I want to talk about the king of the lightweight division. Man, I feel like this guy has all the options in the world. Kambosos, everybody's calling this dude out, including Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney. I saw Shakur on Twitter. Like everybody's everywhere trying to get a piece of this action. So I want to know what you guys think. Like, what would be the best option for Kambosos moving forward? How would you play things out if you were him? I mean, Tank's fighting this week and Haney's fighting this week. And I mean, he really got all these belts at the perfect time. And all of a sudden, everybody wants a piece of the man at the lightweight division.
Well, just real quick,
let me start this off.
Yeah, go ahead, no Paul.
Let me say that he's got all the options, and if I was him, I'd make sure that every fight from now on is in Australia, because he's gonna need it. And I mean, I would, if I was him, I'd personally take the Devin Haney fight and get that extra belt. You know what? But I guess we still got to see who's gonna win this, Devin Haney or JoJo. But either way, I mean, it's that last belt that he needs to officially be undisputed. And I wanted to bring something up real quick. I noticed that he was, even though they didn't transfer over the franchise, I noticed that they did give him two WBC belts. Was kind of weird. It says top rank on it, I noticed. And, I know we were talking about he was supposed to give those back to Teo, and then, his should be getting mailed and set in the mail. But it's still weird that they gave him the WBC belts, or that he's going to receive the WBC belts, because, I know lineally it might belong to him, one of them, because that he's basically the lineal champ now from all the wins that Loma did. So lineally, I guess it does belong to him, but I don't know why they gave him the franchise belt too. I know that he's not going to be the franchise belt champion, so that's kind of weird. But like I said, I think he should take the winner of Devin Haney and JoJo Diaz. I think that'd be a good ass fight in Australia.
Yeah, just touching on the belts real quick. I think it probably wasn't as sophisticated as we thought. I think they probably just gave them all the belts they had and just let them have them, and then they'll just return them. I don't think they really thought about it that much.
Maybe you're right, man. If I was Kambosos, I agree with Nopal, dude. Yeah, man, have it in Australia. You could pick anybody you want. I mean, you might even take Ryan Garcia if you want. There's no reason not to take your time. I mean, everybody else does. And you just had a huge win, and you did just go through a war. I mean, everybody wants you because they think that you're an easier touch. Nobody was calling out Teofimo Lopez, right? So I say make your money. Also, you got to get that rematch clause in, man. I'm telling you.
Hey, that's a great point, guys. Like, because you guys know your stuff. With the names that were kind of mentioned, just kind of throw them out there. Would you favor Kambosos against any of them, even in Australia?
I mean, maybe Ryan Garcia, but I also think Ryan Garcia has really fast hands. I think he's powerful early, but he's also untested. Like, he's somebody that I also need more information on. I think he could. I do think that he would be Devin Haney's toughest opponent. I think Tank would probably beat Kambosos, but then again, like I said, I completely underestimated him, and we don't know how much better he can be at lightweight. Like, he might be a fighter who takes everything, as a learning lesson, and he improves upon his game with every fight.
Cool. No, that's a great assessment. Run PMC, what's your thoughts, brother? Like, do you think he could beat any of those guys? We don't want to shortchange Kambosos again. Like, what's your thoughts, brother? Like, do you think you favor him against anyone?
With the current mindset of Ryan Garcia, I think he could beat Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia does have pop, though. We have to recognize that. But we've seen he's been able to get dropped by what seemingly a lighter puncher than Kambosos, that being Luke Campbell, and he was more than dropped. He was rocked. Like, he was all over the place. Like, he was out when going down. I don't favor him against Tank. I just think his Tank will just be too much for him. But I thought Teofimo would be too much for him as well. So
right.
but it seems like Tank is, the last few fights at least, when he's been out in Vegas, is training hard, though. To be honest, it's looked like he's come ready to go. It would be a tough fight against Haney. I said when we were off air at the start of this fight, I'd probably right now favor him over Haney, and that's just my gut feeling of how I feel. I just think that, I mean, Haney had a great performance against Linares, except for the the constant holding after he got rocked, and he was rocked, and he was unable to recover. So if Kambosos is on him, and Lara sort of pulled like a Vladimir Klitschko against AJ, he sort of let him off the hook.
Yeah.
He just sort of, it was odd. Like Linares didn't close in that fight, and I think it's just because he's old. But Kambosos would definitely be able to close because he
No, that's
was
a good
trying to
point.
close on Teo, but Teo wasn't hurt. He was stunned and he buzzed, but it was more of a flash. It wasn't a flash; it was above a flash, but it wasn't like he was dropped hard. So I think I would favor him against Haney. I would favor him more against Ryan. But then I don't think he would beat Tank. I think Tank right now is possibly, this might be Tank's prime we're seeing right now, and I just can't see him beating him. I think Tank might hurt him. It would definitely be competitive because you could see Tank could be outboxed, but Tank's power is he hits very hard, and it's carried up wherever he's gone, and it's been there the whole career. So I don't see it diminishing right now at any point.
Okay. No, Paul, what about you, brother? I know you were like me, you weren't excited about this fight, but here we are. So what do you think about Kambosos against the other guys, man? Like are you a believer yet, or you think he can beat any of those guys, or what?
I slightly favor him over Devin Haney. I completely favor him over Ryan Garcia. And I think the JoJo fight would be a 50-50. Just like you guys, I think Tank Davis would probably whoop him hella quick. So that's basically, I agree with a lot of what Run said,
All
as
right.
far
So
as that.
that was
Nice,
kind of a
man.
long way for me to answer because I think, George Kambosos is a smart guy. And like he talked about 80,000 people, I think he will go there and, go after the winner of JoJo Diaz, Devin Haney, JoJo Diaz. But at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me also if he makes a title defense first in Australia and make as much money as possible. I mean, we don't like it, but it is a business. I hope not. Kind of just said like it just reset the chessboard. But that's kind of what I'm anticipating that, he realizes, unless he sees something this weekend, which would be awesome. Like, shit, I'm going to fight that guy right now. I'm ready, So that's kind of where I'm
Totally.
at.
And
I
we're
think
about
he'll
to
make
preview
title
those
defense
here.
first in Australia.
Oh, yeah. And we're about to preview those here in a second, but there's something else that happened over the weekend. Then we'll go right back to lightweight, but we're going to go to 122 pounds where Stephen Fulton in a championship unification decisions Brandon Figueroa. I want to know what you guys thought about this fight. How'd you see it? No, Paul, let's start with you, man. Or we could start with Sean Gringo Hicks. Sean, why don't you let us know what you thought, man?
Hell of a fight, man. It was a unbelievable weekend, and the timing of it. Thank you so much, Boxing Gods. I was able to watch both, so that really worked out. As far as I saw on a slight delay, but unbelievable fight. And I had a high opinion. I'm Texas biased, as I said, so I knew the Heartbreaker was going to bring it. This was the one fight though where I kind of questioned what his pressure style would be able to, be implemented. Like he forces his will on people and just kind of breaks you down with the punches to the body and the inside phone booth style. I'm like, Fulton is gonna go on the outside and box him and try to stay away from that. Man, was I wrong? And I'm glad I was wrong. So hell of a fight, great action, back and forth, a lot of clean shots that were landed, a lot of shots thrown by Figueroa. I scored it 7-5 Figueroa, and it was a hell of a fight. And I know some ugliness in the end as far as like back and forth in the ring, but as far as the boxing standpoint of it, I loved it, and yeah, it was great stuff. One thing I also want to say too is it's kind of funny, how especially with us scoring lately. I was also kind of monitoring boxing Twitter, which I don't always recommend, and there's people, typical boxing, right? Pivot real quick when they're like watching the fight. We're like, oh man, this is a hard fight to judge. Or like, I'd hate to be the judge on this fight. But as soon as they announced the scorecards, people are like, robbery this and robbery that. So boxing's going to box. Now, I see why people are saying that, but at the same time, it was an extremely close fight. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well.
It was crazy. I would not expect. I mean, I expected this to be the all action fight. I didn't expect the Teo fight to be all action. But this was a great fight. I officially didn't score this fight, so just take that when I give my opinion on the fight. I didn't score it round by round. I just given a general feeling to it. But I mean, I was impressed by Fulton and how he went to war. I was expecting sort of what what Brandon looks like to me is a smaller Omar Figueroa, but just that's more focused. So we got hellacious chin from both guys, but really from Figueroa. But what I felt Figueroa won, but this is I did, like I said, I didn't score. But the reason I say that is because Fulton went to war with Figueroa and he was sort of forced into that war. But when you go to war with someone and you get outgunned by them, then you lose. You're losing the rounds if you're getting outgunned by someone when you're in a war. Because how could we say? I mean, obviously there are ebbs and flows in those types of bouts. But how could you say like, oh, that body punch only did 33% damage when that clear headshot did like 40% damage? Like we can't say that. We're not in the ring. But what's telling is when one fighter's going back and getting hit by straights and jabs and falling into the ropes and then getting punches landed on their arms and then like 4 punches to the body, that's more telling to me than when someone counters with like an uppercut and that's 1 punch and then the other fighter's back on them. So when, like I said, when you go to war and you get outgunned, I think you lose, honestly.
Good stuff.
All right, and Nopal, what'd you think, brother?
This is a typical fight where it's Figueroa made it more about a battle of wills, basically, and that's what I saw there. Even though Fulton was able to get some really good shots in and do some work, regardless of the fact that he was getting smothered all over the place, basically pushed everywhere. But honestly, at the end of the fight, I felt like a draw would have been reasonable, very reasonable for both guys. They get a rematch and then they get to keep their belt with no loss on their record. I thought, that would have been the reasonable thing to score it a draw, because Fulton did do some really good work. And, at the end of the day, I say that it wasn't really a robbery. It was, I think it could have went either way. So I'm okay with that. And, Fulton is a really classy guy, man. He's a good fighter too. So, I hope that he gives Figueroa a rematch.
Nice. And I'd like to give a shout out to 92 AKU is in the house. Thanks for joining us, brother. Sonteo Media, Shoeshine, Puro Sur Central, Boxeo, CCD. Thank you, man, for joining us. Marcelo Hernandez and Philly Irish Drew Evo's in the house. I know he's having a good time with Teofimo taking the loss. So it's all right. But like I said, Drew, you know what I mean? That doesn't mean that Loma beat Teofimo. You know what I mean? Loma, he's just going to have to accept that loss, just like Teofimo's going to have to accept that loss. You know what I mean? But I totally agree with Nopal, man. Like, I'll tell you, I thought it could have gone either way. Like, and it's an interesting dynamic. I've heard this argument that, well, and I'm not talking about you specifically, Run, or anybody, but just I've heard this, and it's funny too, because this is something that I also wanted to touch on in a different way. This idea that Figueroa made Fulton fight the fight that he wanted to fight, and so went to the ropes. And when I was looking at the fight, like, it wasn't always on the ropes. I felt like sometimes Fulton made the decision to go to the ropes, and he was comfortable on the ropes. And we've seen that many times where a fighter can be comfortable on the ropes. I've seen Juan Manuel Marquez do it. Mayweather lived on the ropes, and I'm not saying he was slipping and sliding like Mayweather, but I mean, he was getting his own good work in there. Great counter punching. I do think that Figueroa clearly won a good handful of rounds, but I think that Fulton also won some rounds. Like, I could have seen it go either way. And this idea of, okay, well, you're making the guy fight your fight. It's like, well, that's something that I've been considering a lot in general. Like, when I think about effective aggression, kind of like this idea, well, if somebody goes on the back foot, right, and doesn't want to be like an inside fighter or a mid-range fighter and kind of wants to be long range and come in, it's like, well, some people favor the person who's on the back foot dancing, but it's like, you could also make the argument that the aggressor is making that guy fight that fight. So it's kind of interesting, like, to consider those things, and like I said, it's always subjective in my opinion. So I don't think anybody's particularly right, but I could see how people have different frames of mind. Do you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. Another thing that stood out to me is I don't know how you guys feel about it, but at Brandon Figueroa at the end of the fight, like he said, he's moving up. I felt like he looked like a lot bigger than Fulton to me. Like when he rehydrated, he's the taller guy, but he just seemed like a lot bigger. And I think you bring up some good points. I mean, Fulton felt obviously comfortable going and fighting in the pocket, and he was landing some clean shots, and especially felt like in the later half his precision didn't wane at all. Even though he got hurt, like he could say what he want. I had him hurt like 10, well, not 10 times, but I saw him hurt like 5 times. It felt like to me, especially like in the 10th round. But I felt both guys were kind kind of buzz. But I gave the edge to Figueroa, but I mean, you could talk me into it being a draw, like No Paul said. I definitely wouldn't use the word robbery at all, and I'm just not.
Good, man, and it's glad that we keep it out Chile here because we got to speak our minds. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, and I think we've all grown to respect each other's opinions. You know what I mean? So, hey, dude, let's move on to.
I want to touch on one more
go
thing
ahead.
about
Go
the
ahead, Ren.
whole style thing. Like I agree with Chicano about how you could make choices for you to fight a fight in something that might not be fitting to your style. Like we touched on it. Like I think it was D Style or G Funky. I forgot which one said it yesterday that Bradley didn't make an active decision in his fight to go to war. Maybe not the second round on, but in the first round of the Bradley Provatnikov fight, he definitely made a decision to go to war with Provatnikov. He was throwing recklessly. It was like sort of like what Teo was doing in this fight, like recklessly just getting up close with a guy he knows has power. So I partly agree with I don't remember, I think it was D Style that I partly agree that Bradley didn't make a choice after that because he was out on his feet sort of for the rest of the fight. And he was he had to go to war and really had to box off the back foot in places. But I think that first round he did make an active decision because he did want to make a point, unless they were just lying through the whole like promotion of that fight. And I just think it's from Bradley's style. We saw uncharacteristic Bradley with the big puncher in there. Like he tried that with Kendall Holt and he got floored and totally boxed. It happened earlier in his career too. So I just wanted to touch on that, but I do agree that with Chicano that it could have been Fulton's decision. I just thought in spots that Figueroa did impose in style, but like I said, there are ebbs and flows throughout the fight.
Well, he did go in there with a sombrero, right, and Mexican
Yes,
colors,
he did do
right?
that.
So
He
I
did do
mean, that's
that.
kind of an indicator that he's willing to bang it out.
That's true.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, let's get on a little piece of news. I'll tell you what, there's been so much boxing to cover as far as like what happened on the weekend and what's coming up for the next week that we just sometimes don't have a chance to get to news. But I want to touch on this really quickly. We have a undisputed rematch happening. Jermell Charlo versus Castano. It looks like it's green lit for February. I want to know your guys' initial thoughts. Let's start with the local here, the Texan local. Sean, what do you think, man?
I'm excited as hell, man. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a banger of a fight. It's one of those fights where we talked about, where, hey, go ahead and invite your friends, get the barbecue, get the fajitas ready. Let's do it. Like, it's going to be a banger. And I'm not worried about, the other fight was the other fight, right? I believe that Castano won. Yes, I scored it 7-5 for him. Some even had an 8-4, and that's fine. But this is the second fight. Respect to both guys for the immediate rematch. I think it's going to be a fight where we're not going to have to worry about judges because I believe that Castano agreed to it. Obviously, it's a big payday for him, but outside of that, he realizes that he knows what he needs to do. He can't hold back. Not that he was, but when the opportunity comes, he's going to have to let it loose, and he has to get the knockout. No judges in this fight. They can send the judges home, which I'm fine with.
Yeah, this is it's going to be a great fight. I mean, the first fight was great. Both fighters hurt on multiple occasions. I was thoroughly surprised by Castano's performance, and that's another fight. It's like was Jamel, excuse me, led into his style or led into Castano's style, or did he overwhelm him, or what was the case? But like undisputed, I'm glad we're getting an immediate rematch because after the fight, I really didn't think we were just based on how some like Jermel was talking and about you always hear like the ever looming mandatories that might be coming up for both fighters, and you sort of floated out there both will have a mandatory then meet up again, but I'm glad they got it done, whether it's side money they give to the mandatories or the sanctioning bodies a little more. I'm totally fine with that because I don't care about what they get paid. I just want to see the best fights.
And Nopal, what do you think, brother?
I really love this rematch, and I expect Jermell to go in there and make an adjustment. That's what he's going to need to do to win this fight. And I'm not necessarily sure if he can knock Castano out because Castano looked like he has a pretty good chin, but I'm expecting Jermell to make that adjustment. And I would, if I had a projection, I think he's got a 55% chance of winning, and I would give Castano a 45% chance. As far as who won the original match, yeah, I believe Castano won. I think I had it scored about 8-4 or 9-3, something like that.
Yeah, I would love to go back and rescore this one. Like when I originally watched it, I had Castano winning narrowly, but I wasn't upset with the draw as much as other people were on the night when everybody was talking about it. But I thought Castano should have been given the nod, but I didn't necessarily think that it was a robbery. Very excited to see these two get back in the ring. As far as who I favor in the rematch, I'd really love to watch that fight. It's not available anywhere as far as where I could find it. I looked too, so I'm sure it will come up as we get closer. Does anybody have anything else on that before we move on?
No, it's a great fight, but I could text you a place that might have it. They have like
Ooh.
every fight, and they upload those fights usually like an hour after it occurs too. So I have a website.
Run
Oh,
PMC.
thank you very
He got the
much.
sources.
Very nice. Well, let's go back to 135. This weekend, we have a championship fight. We got Devin Haney versus Jojo Diaz. This should be a good one, man. This one kind of snuck up on me. And, the closer we get, the more I start thinking that, Jojo Diaz might have a chance, but I want to know what you all think. Sean, let's start with you, man. What do you think about this fight?
All right, so this is where the results of a previous fight have direct impact on the preceding fight. So I believe that honestly, I was ready to tell you guys I thought JoJo was going to pull the upset off because I felt like he was going to go ahead and bait Haney into more of inside fighting, and get some advantage of the exchanges, take advantage of him on the ropes. And really, because he can, like, he's got a little craftiness to him. He can box in real good, slick spots, and I think he could take advantage from that standpoint, and bait Haney in, and like I said, and now he doesn't have power, but I think he has the advantage of the inside fighting, and I felt like he had the advantage there. Now, because Kambosos is king, or he calls himself the emperor, I'm thinking that Haney's going to fight. It's not going to be the excitement we had last weekend. I'm expecting him to box the entire time on the outside and just take the victory and wait for his payday. I mean, on paper. So I think he's going to win comfortably. I see it like 9-3.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is a toss-up fight. I mean, Haney showed. I mean, Haney showed he could box, and up until this career, and he showed in the Linares fight up until the last. I mean, he still was being able to survive, but I don't know. I think JoJo is going to be. I know JoJo is going to be a little fresher than an old Linares, especially Linares that had COVID, that had to travel, had all the travel stuff back when, from back to and from Japan. JoJo's just training. He's back with his dad. I don't think he's training with Joel Diaz anymore. I'm not saying he won't be in the corner, but I think he's just back with his dad and Ben Lira down in I forgot where Maywood Boxing Club. I think they train out of in LA. So JoJo's going to come to win. Um, he has a sparring partner that's previously sparred Devin Haney. I'm sure he can give him some insights about what he saw from him. And I mean, JoJo, we saw right here with the Kambosos fight. I know it's like a broken record, but with the will to win, and to me, Haney seems a bit entitled as a fighter. I'm just saying as a fighter. I'm not talking about as a. Just like he seems like it was like just because you train with Roger and Floyd Senior doesn't make you Floyd Mayweather. It doesn't, and just because you operate and do the things he does doesn't make you who he was. Because he's really nowhere close skill wise, like nowhere close. But I think JoJo could come to win. And if he does, he'll have to overwhelm him. I think he'll have to win by getting, like we said, getting Haney on the ropes and making him inactive. And the fight that comes to mind, even though JoJo doesn't have the power, is the Mayweather Maidana one. He's going to need to trap him on the ropes and make him inactive, even if he's not landing quote unquote scoring blows. He's going to have to make him inactive and win by just Haney not allowing Haney to do anything by just trapping on the ropes and just throwing and maybe back off in spots, have Haney come to him, then rush him again. Because I don't see JoJo outboxing him because he dogged Tevin Farmer, but JoJo can box. He was one of my favorite boxers coming out of the 2012 class, out of that Olympic class. So it's always a possibility. And we've seen did we anticipate Kambosos outboxing Teofimo Lopez and then ended up like wearing him down towards the end? No. So we might see anything, but stakes are high for this one. Kambosos is going to be ringside. This is good stuff for boxing.
Absolutely.
Damn, well, that was a great breakdown from both of you. Like,
Damn.
I see it both your ways. Like, I think I'd have to lean towards run as far as like how I see this fight playing out and the strategy. But damn, those are some great breakdowns, man. I want to give a shout out here to Marion Brown in the house. Jose R is back, and the land of the kingdom is here. Freedom Kev, Man in Water, Nando, Yama's in the house. Thank you all so much for joining us. And Nopal, how do you see this fight, man?
Well, as far as this fight is concerned, I want to just call it a 50-50 because although Devin has all the business momentum and he has everything, all that other stuff working for him, he's got the good trainers, he's got all the good stuff, I see Jojo as a very serious boxer, who wants to fight everybody and doesn't necessarily want to always get the upper hand financially. He just wants the bigger fights. He's willing to risk a little, and I think he's a little more serious about his career than most other fighters. So I want to call this a 50-50, and a lot has to do also with the way that the things that I saw in Devin Haney versus Linares. I was really surprised with that fight, and that kind of is swaying me. Otherwise, I would just call this a 55-45, kind of like I did with Charlo and Castano, in Devin Haney's favor. I would say that, but I think that it's going to be a close fight. May the best man win this one, and it's going. It'll be intriguing to see if whoever the winner of this fight gets the opportunity to fight Kambosos.
Hey, man, great points. And the only thing I can add to this is that, yes, I agree, man. This is a step-up fight for Haney. I think this is his biggest challenge so far. So I say, may the best man win. And I want to go to another championship fight, supposedly. Well, it's one of those minor belts, but we'll just call it a championship fight. I know that's what Floyd would want. We got Tank Davis versus Pitbull Cruz. This one kind of snuck up on me, but now I'm starting to look forward to it, man, and I want some breakdowns and a prediction. Run, let's start with you, man. What do you think about this fight?
I mean, Pitbull is what he is. He's a Pitbull. I've seen him fight his last few fights. The Diego Magdaleno one was really impressed me because I'm not saying I think like super, super highly of Diego Magdaleno, but he was a live body in there. But to take him out the way he did by just bludgeoning him in the corner, it did impress me. And then it showed that he could wear guys down in his past fight. But I think Tank's going to win all the way. I don't think Pitbull's style is really fitting for Tank. I mean, it's fitting for Pitbull to win because I think Tank's just going to knock him out. I could watch more Pitbull fights, but that's just my gut feeling with Tank. Like Tank has shown up until this point, at least in the recent fights, that he could be doing whatever he wants, and at any point he could just drop the hammer and then it's over. It's lights out for the fighter. Like Barrios was winning rounds, Leo was winning rounds, and then when Tank, whether it's he decided to turn it up or the other fighters were gassing, like what D-Style says, I think his margin for victory, the margin for victory on his opponents is much smaller. Like they have to be more perfect than Tank has to get the fight. So I'm picking Tank by KO. I would say I don't want, because I said before I'm sort of gun shy because I got this prediction wrong on the Kambosos fight, but I would say Tank within 6.
All right. Nopal, what do you think, brother?
Man, originally when I heard about this fight, dude, I just thought that, just Tank has so much and it's going to be an overwhelming, he's got so many advantages over Isaac Cruz as Pitbull. I thought it was like a 90% chance for Tank to just knock Cruz out. But I got to tell you, man, I've been watching some of these videos and Cruz is over there doing the neck exercises, man. So he's getting that chin ready. So, but still, I do think that it's a pretty high mountain he's got to climb, and I think he is pretty small. So, I still don't think he has much of a chance, but, that would be crazy if he pulled up an upset,
Yeah, I don't think Cruz has much of a chance either. Somebody mentioned earlier that Tank Davis is in his prime, and I'd have to agree with that. I do think that Cruz will come to win, so I think it's going to be highly entertaining. I think it will be a short night for Tank Davis, but who knows, man? We could see maybe a flash knockdown the other way. I'm not sure, but I'm definitely predicting Davis by KO before probably, I don't know, I'm pretty similar to Run, I think, before 6. The one thing that I did want to touch on, though, is that, I did find it unfortunate that Tank Davis has switched his trainers. Like, I've always kind of been a fan of his trainer Ford, like the way he speaks, their relationship, what he's got going on in the community. And I thought that he was Tank's trainer in the lead up to the Romero fight. So, I mean, it looks like when the opponent switched, the trainer switched. And that's their decision, but to me, I found that a little bit unfortunate. Like, it was working for them. And I'm sure that, Tank had some advisors that advised them to go this way. And it is what it is. But I want to say that I'm a little disappointed in the trainer switch. I like a sense of loyalty. And it seems like to me, like those guys go way back. So that's what I wanted to say there.
So Calvin Ford's not training him for this fight?
No, he switched to, man, I forgot, but it's a very accredited trainer. I'll look it up while Sean gives us his take.
Okay.
All right. Well, this take is going to be pretty quickly, so you might want to look it up fast on Google. I think that Davis is just too much, man. I got a lot of respect for Pitbull Cruz, and it's just, I think there's just a gap there. And, Tank is 27 now. So, yeah, I think he's right in his prime, in his wheelhouse. And, I believe the statement as far as like he can, not can, but he does lose rounds early, but I think he's not even messing around. Like, I'm actually saying Tank in 4 by brutal stoppage. I think it'll be some exciting moments while it lasts, but it's not going to last long. So get your drinks and have them in front of you. Don't wait till later, because if you go to the bathroom, you're going to miss it.
You think it's going to be the uppercut?
Lead uppercut? I think it is. I think it's going to be a new meme. Also, too, just real quick, I'm a big fan of Friday night boxing. I love Saturday afternoon boxing is the best. You got all night to do whatever. Sunday night boxing, not a fan. All right, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, of course you're not gonna like Sunday night boxing, bro. That's the day you guys got your show, right? I wouldn't like no Tuesday night boxing.
Like, to me, it's not so bad, but the three of us, Sean, are on the West Coast, you know what I mean? So it's not that late. But if you got to work that next day, or if you want to get fucked up, it's hard to do that on a Sunday.
Which is always, sir. Which is always. So, from that standpoint, So little selfish, little gringo insight, selfishly. If I rank the times when I want the fights, Friday, love it. Saturday afternoon, the best, right?
Yeah.
Saturday night, why not? Absolutely. That's obviously the time when you do it, especially if you're going in person. That's the best time.
And Ron, I wanted to touch back with what you were asking about. So Barry Hunter is Tank's new trainer, and I did look for some Calvin Ford interviews post breakup, and Ford was basically saying that Tank's going to go in there and do what he needs to do, but he definitely needs to take Cruz seriously, but expects Tank to just be able to handle it. So that's the update.
Yeah, and Barry Hunter's worked with Tank. Him and they call him, I think his nickname is Jay Boog, the assistant trainer, sort of the bigger guy that works the pads really fast. They've Calvin Ford's run and they're all from the same area out in DC. So I'm sure they've just crossed paths. And I mean, obviously he's worked and done training camps out of Headbangers, but it's just even for the last fight, Tank wasn't training with Calvin Ford for the whole camp either. He did a pre-camp and then had sort of an abbreviated training camp. So it's nothing new, but it would be nice to at least have him in the corner. You like seeing that continuity in a boxer's career, at least.
I think another thing that you had said earlier, Run PMC, that I agree, and I don't know if that's attributed to the change in the trainer, but there's definitely a change in Tank. He seems a lot more serious. To me, he's a lot more dedicated. I've always been kind of questioning as far as his commitment to boxing, he blows up and is he going to make weight? I remember even making a bet with Cano Sports as far as is he going to make weight before the Leo Santa Cruz fight? Oh man, but he did. But I think there's a change there. So if that's a part of it, and we're getting focused Tank, sign me up. Not on Sunday, but sign me up.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Sunday boxing if it was Sunday around noon. Have a little breakfast, a little lunch, have a little lunch. But the thing is, it's pay-per-view and the undercard's horrendous. It's bad, and so it's if this was a free fight, say if it was even on Showtime, then I wouldn't mind. Instead of at 12 o'clock, just throwing it on, that'd be cool. But not pay-per-view.
Hey, that's a good point. I know we talk boxing here and not about money. Sorry, no problem. Just real quick, I'm sorry, brother. It's do you think they're overplaying their hand here? They're going against the NFL. It's at night on Sunday. The card as a whole, not Tank, he is the man, but the card as a whole is not thumbs up, right?
Right.
So do you think they're going to, maybe bite the big one on this one as far as whoa, we need to chill on these pay-per-views, which I would appreciate.
Man, I think so. I mean, with his big fights getting like 250K buys, and you're going against NFL football in the United States. NFL football is king in the United States. So that plus it's not a, I mean, not to downplay Cruz, but it's
No,
not a
not at all.
general popular, it's not a popular to the general public fighter.
Right.
And
Or
it's
a
just,
real title fight.
yeah, exactly. And it's on a Sunday. All
I'm
those
telling
factors.
you, man. Plus, like if say you have like a budget for pay-per-view for boxing, like I mean, we just had Canelo, we just had Crawford, like tanks towards the end of the priority list and at the end of all these, at the end of the year. So
Before
I don't know,
Christmas.
man.
Before Christmas too.
Oh, yeah. And it's like sub 100. How much is it? $70?
Yeah.
Get
No
HD, it's like
discount.
$80. It's like,
Right.
come on, that's almost $100. And Mayweather Pacquiao HD was $100. Think about that.
Brutal. No, Paul, you got anything on this before we move on, brother?
Yeah, I think when it comes to Tank, I think they have some kind of formula set up for him. It's more not necessarily more about making a lot of money on him right now. It's more about the events that they're setting up and stuff like that. Because if it was just about him fighting the best guy, then we know that he'd go straight up out after the real champion. So I think the Sunday thing is just a move they're making. Make it, they might actually try to lie on the numbers or something like that, but they're ready to do that because they're investing a lot of money in Tank. And, they're trying to bring all the casuals to it. So, that's what I think about it,
All right, man. Well, hey, we got the wrap up done. So now it's time for our controversial rescore segment. And I'm curious to see, how many viewers we have right now and what the drop off will be, simply because, there's this idea that Lara doesn't sell, and we're going to find out. But we had to do this one because it is a controversial fight. I've heard about this one for a while. Lara versus Williams. And I never saw it back in the day, so I'm glad I got a chance to see it. Also, we needed to score this one first to see where Lara's at with everything, because this is a lead up to Canelo versus Lara, the controversial rescore. We're going for it, but we got to take care of this one first. And then after that, we're going to go straight to Canelo versus Lara. And I know G Funky has retired, but I'm hoping he can make a comeback. And if not, I'm going to call it a duck. All right. But it's okay either way, because it's going to be one hell of a show. You know what I mean? But let's talk about this one, man. Lara versus Williams. I actually enjoyed this fight, and it gave me some interesting considerations. Also, No Paul had us take a look at Lara versus Angulo. We're going to talk about that one a little bit too, man. So let's start off with some scores. I want to start with Sean. Let's start with the Lara Williams fight, man. How'd you have this fight scored? Also, if you could give me a little bit of context, bro, as to like what you were thinking at the time, where things were at with you, because we don't really have a full breakdown for this one. So please, man, go ahead.
Definitely. All right. So going into the fight, I was a big Paul Williams fan, and he was coming off the brutal knockout where he was knocked out second round by Sergio Martinez. So it was a lot of like, what is he going to be able to do? What's he going to look like? What kind of Paul Williams are going to get? Are we going to get the old Punisher we're used to? And then, he was fighting Lara, which, he was, making a name for himself, Cuban fighter, dangerous, but, people will really kind of question maybe his motor, because like Roy Williams kept talking about during the fight, a lot of the professional Cuban fighters and the amateurs, they used to 3 rounds and they kind of gas out. They box and, they kind of gas out. So how does it always transition to the pros? I thought that Paul Williams, first of all, it's always scary in any sport, especially boxing. When they start talking about retirement, that means they're thinking about retirement. And that means, where they truly focus in regards to the fight, are going to put it all out there, or they already got one foot outside the ring, literally. So I would say, in sum up the fight overall, to me, is just sad, because he would just beat the hell up, man. Lara beat the shit out of him, man. I had it 10-2. The 2 rounds that I gave to Paul Williams was because of volume that he landed was 4-5, and 5 was kind of questionable. I think that was almost like I forced myself to give him like, oh, maybe he's coming back. The adjustments were made, and that's the thing about it. It was such a one-dimensional game plan from the standpoint the overhand left, and he could not get out of the way of it. He could not. It was sad. Like at one point, I think it was the 8th round when he got cut. That I was thinking like, man, they just need to throw in the towel. His trainer, George Peterson, calmest cat ever in the corner, just like, hey, man, you need to do this and put your hand up, your right hand up, because he was getting caught with the same damn punch. And the thing is, he's 6'2", right? But because he's so long, when he tried to come in, because he likes to prefer to fight in, he was getting caught again and again and again. And Lara just was bobbing in and out and just hitting him. And he was sitting on his punch too. Like, he didn't have Sergio Martinez power, but, he was hitting him clean, like super clean.
Oh yeah.
And he hurt him several times, and it was tough to watch. So yeah.
Yeah, this was also tough for me to watch. Just knowing it was sad watching, just seeing Paul Williams, a shell of himself, coming down in weight back again, because Paul Williams ranged what Triple G said he would do. Paul Williams did. Went from 147, 154, catch weights 160. Paul Williams actually did, and he took on all comers. Um, I, what I remember from this is that Floyd Mayweather Sr. At this point didn't really have a good relationship with his son. You saw on 24/7 him and his son yelling at each other. Floyd saying like, "You're a shit fighter. You don't know shit about boxing," to his dad, and I felt embarrassed for Floyd during that point. I think everyone remembers that on 24/7, and then Floyd Sr. He was training. He was going to become the trainer for 50 Cent's SMS Promotions at this time, and he was saying Paul Williams would have given Floyd the most trouble. A rangy left-handed fighter with high punch volume, and you saw what high punch volume did to Floyd in his career. And imagine a guy who was relentless with a chin like that and punch volume like that with the body punching. It could have spelled very badly for Floyd. But I mean, it was sad for me to watch because seeing what they're talking about, how Paul Williams has a lot of real estate investments. He's saved all his money, and then seeing how tragically his life is now. Being for people that don't know, with the motorcycle accident, him being paralyzed from the waist down. So it's like, he seems like a happy guy, even when you see him at the fights here and there. But it's like, I'm sure that, I don't think anyone imagines their life going that way after he quit. Really, at his point, like he was faded in his career, but he really on his own terms. He wasn't really knocked out, and he was knocked out against Martinez, but that wasn't his last fight. But this really being his last hurrah, he did have one more fight after this. But seriously, and it was sad. I also had it 10-2 in favor of Irislandi Lara. I did have, though, competitive rounds that I all gave to Lara, which were the 6th, 8th, and 12th. But for me, those weren't really. Those were more competitive rounds. They weren't like swing rounds. If like it was like, oh, Paul Williams picked it up, but I wouldn't really consider those true swing for me. The rounds I did give Williams, though, were the 4th and the 5th. I thought Lara just landed landed cleaner punches, and where they were harder punches, but he was outthrown by Williams, but he outlanded Williams. So I know, like, some people put the argument out, like we hear a lot with like the Fulton fight, uh, just being recent, that, oh, but he was more efficient with his punches. Lara was more efficient, but he did outland Williams too. So I just want to think that, but it was a great fight to watch. Super sad to see, just with Paul, and like Paul was a nice guy in and out of the ring. He did a lot in the community too, so it's just sad to see. And but definitely a good fight. 2011 with the classic fights, because they have Ortiz Berto, they had this fight, and then they had Kirkland Angulo. So crazy fights in 2011.
Absolutely. One thing I also want to add too, as far as what made it so sad, that the overhand left is what got him knocked out by Sergio Martinez. So literally, you just kind of see it like a replay of just history, just over and over again. And Lara was landing them so clean. So that, to me, also just weighed in. Real quick, Run PMC. At any point, did you feel like in the 11th round, where he was hurt badly, did you ever feel like the towel was going to get thrown in, or no way?
I thought, based on what the coroner was saying, they're telling me he needs to pick it up. I thought they were, but at the same time, this was sort of like, even the commentary, Max Kellerman and them, they're saying this is probably going to be Williams' last fight. So they're like, just let him go, just let him finish it out. There's only one more round and he'll be done. He had that last fight, I think, against Ashita. That was his last fight, which I watched on Showtime, and he won that fight, but it was like, it was some of the same, and then he retired after that fight. But I mean, I could have, if he was earlier in his career, I could see them stopping it. But also, you could say, since he's so late in his career, why didn't they stop it? But maybe they just wanted Paul not to get 2 stoppage losses and just him finish it out, and maybe get to the cards. And you saw what happened, so it's like, it's better that they didn't stop it, at least for his sake.
Yeah. No, great point, man.
And no, Paul, how'd you see this fight, man?
Well, man, it was a good ass fight, and I thought that Lara started off by fighting on the inside really good. And, it was interesting because a lot of people think that he just most of the time fights on the outside, back foot type of thing. But you saw an even mix of him making a lot of adjustments here just to, you know, stay on the upper hand with Williams. And so at the beginning, Lara was doing really good the first 2 rounds, and then of course, I gave him those 2 rounds. The third, and then from there, from the second round on, I kind of saw that Williams was starting to pressure Lara. So I did give him the third round, the fourth round, the fifth, and the sixth. I thought he was doing really good body work, and I thought he was kind of dominant and was being the ring general right there. But then on the seventh, then I gave it to Lara, and then the eighth I gave it back to Williams, and then the ninth I gave it to Lara, and then the last round that I gave to Williams was the 10th. I do want to disclose that by the 11th round, yeah, I do agree that Williams' corner should have probably threw in the towel, because he was taking a lot of damage, and his coach, I mean, it took the broadcasters, I guess how they bring in the guy to ask him. It took them to ask him, are you guys going to do anything with that left hand? The same one he got knocked out versus Sergio Martinez. I was very surprised that that's what it took for him to kind of tell. Finally, I think in the 11th round, he kind of told Paul Williams, well, you got to watch that. But I think that he should have threw in the towel by that time because, but at the same time, I mean, they ended up giving Williams the win. I don't agree with it. I want to repeat. I'm not sure if I told you guys, but the rounds that I gave Williams, they were all swing rounds. So, I basically gave it to him because I thought he not necessarily. I know that Lara did a lot of work and he probably connected more, but I kind of thought that he was swaying the momentum. But at the end of the day, he did lose that momentum by the 11th round, and so I scored this a draw. And I wanted to read the scorecards of the judges. The first judge, he scored it a draw. Second judge, 115, 114, and then the third judge, 116, 114, which is very surprising because although I do see a draw, I also wouldn't disagree with anybody saying that Lara won this fight 10-2. I would just necessarily say difference of opinion. I actually thought that Williams won a couple of these rounds, so there goes that.
Yeah, this is a very interesting fight to go back and look at because, I've been having this conversation with you all about power versus volume. And I know Run mentioned earlier that, well, Lara did outland Williams, and he did, right? But I mean, there was a lot of volume going on. And also, I would like to take a look at those punch stats and maybe, I mean, if I cared enough, I would probably go back and count this stuff myself. Like, I thought Paul Williams had pretty good volume, and I thought he was connecting, but a lot of these punches just were not stiff. On the other hand, Lara was just connecting beautifully, nice stiff punches right down the pipe. And yeah, it made me uneasy to watch this too. And old commentary is very interesting. Sometimes they'll say things that aren't really mentioned anymore. Like, for instance, is this fighter who just took a severe knockout, I mean, is he damaged goods? They don't really talk about that anymore. It's also kind of like, these days, like, if a fighter's in their mid-30s, like they, back in the day, like they would say, oh, this guy's on a geriatric tour, like being like 36, like Bernard Hopkins when he's in the ring, right? But, now people don't really talk about that like that. They do say that this fighter's not in his prime, but I don't know, just the perception's a little bit different in my opinion. I did have this fight scored 8-4 for Erislandy Lara. I think this definitely was a robbery. I think at the most you could have given Williams, if you were really looking for rounds and you wanted to protect him, you could have given him a draw. But I think that Lara definitely won this. So I would also classify this one as a robbery, like Sean and Ren said. But I mean, it's kind of complicated. Also, the thing is like I could see why Canelo signed up to take this Paul Williams fight. Like, I didn't watch the 2 fights after this fight that Paul Williams had, but I mean, based on this, I mean, Paul Williams, he doesn't fight tall. He doesn't fight long or stiff, and sometimes he's not even really the aggressor when he should be. Sean, you were mentioning his cool as a cat trainer, man. He was sitting there saying, hey, man, like, you need to start getting off. You need to do what you do. And it was kind of tough watching this fight, so but it was kind of a learning lesson for me to kind of watch this. And also, it gave me a chance to take a look at Lara in another light, and we're going to talk about that too when we get to the Angulo fight. But for me personally, yes, I had Erislandy Lara winning this fight. I think the most you could have given Paul Williams was a draw. So I would classify this one as a robbery to give Williams the decision. Yeah, does anybody have anything else on this?
Yeah, I have some like technical things since we're gonna get. I'm not a boxing trainer, but just some things I picked up since we're gonna get into the Lara Angulo fight next. Is that Lara had a very effective punch in this fight, which was like the lead right hook, and he would spin out of the corner or off the ropes with it. He would like lead with the right hook and keep going that way. But you'll see in the next fight that was his downfall too against Angulo, because he'd throw that right hook, he'd be wide open because he would bring it back low. And he'd be wide open for Angulo's left hook, and that's what dropped him twice. So it's just interesting.
Nice, and I want to give a shout out. Sorry, go ahead, Nopal.
Go ahead, do the shout out, brother.
I want to give a shout out to our hermano G Funky Boxing Man. Glad to see that you're here, bro. He says that anyone saying that this fight could be a draw needs to get their head examined. Damn. Well, hey, man, you should have chimed in, man. I would love to see your scorecard on this one. That's why we do these rescores, Hindsight's 2020. It's easy to just think about what you remember back in the day, but we're actually taking a look at this and judging these fights seriously. Like I said, I did find this one to be a robbery, and I think it would be a gift for Paul Williams to have gotten a draw. I think Erislandy Lara clearly won this fight, and it was a good one, man. But like G Funky, now that you're here, bro, like we want you next week for Canelo versus Lara, man. We hope you make it happen. But if not, we understand, bro. You got things going on. So hey, dude, we got a chance to take a look at another fight thanks to Nopal Boxellanos. He had us take a look at Erislandy Lara versus Angulo. Now, this was one hell of a fight. I do remember seeing this one, but it was fun to go back and watch it again. So I don't know if you guys took the opportunity to score it as you watched it, but I want to know what your perceptions were of this fight. And if you did score it, how you scored it. Run, let's start with you, man.
Yeah, I actually scored the fight. At the time of the stoppage, I had Angulo up 85-84 at the time of the stoppage. And that was with the two knockdowns. But I mean, I'll have to be honest. I think I was giving Lara the benefit of the doubt on the rounds I was giving him. I had Lara winning 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and then I had Angulo winning the third, fourth. Fourth was a knockdown. 7, 8, and then I had Lara winning that round at the time of the stoppage. Angulo just in the first few rounds, I'm like, geez, it's gonna be a wipeout because he was just getting pasted. Like I'm like, this is bad. Like Kirkland definitely took his soul from the last fight on this. Like he shouldn't be in the ring. But then he started applying the pressure. I'm like, okay, it sort of was just like he just had like a train getting its engine going. And then he kept coming. And like I just said a few minutes ago, that right hook, Lara threw it, and Angulo came like right above that hand that came back low with the left hook, floored Lara. Lara had some good spurts, and then Angulo came back, same thing. It sort of was like, even though it was the same venue, it was sort of like the Bradley Provatnikov in a way, how like Lara would have good little streaks, but then there would be humongous moments for the opposing fighter, this being Angulo. So at the time of the stoppage, I had it 84-85 for Angulo leading.
All right. And Nopal, man, you're the one who recommended this. Thank you so much. What'd you think? Or we could go to Sean Gringo Hicks.
Yeah, this is and you don't hear this too often, but this is one of my favorite Lara fights. It was action. I had it 86-83. Angulo actually went when the stoppage happened, and I coined it the hematonin fight. And I remember watching it live and just going crazy. And like, how often do you hear that when you hear a Lara fight? But like Paul said, Angulo. Well, you had said you kind of like. I thought that what did Angulo actually have left after Kirkland took his soul and threw it out the ring, but he definitely had a lot left. And I was a big, still am a Pero Angulo fan, so I was excited, and I thought it was a lot of good back and forth action. I thought that he was going to take him out. I really did, but credit to Lara and his conditioning, and it forced him to show more of his skills. A lot of in and out, a lot of back and forth, and he got the stoppage because of the hematonin. And that's the thing, because you can't say, oh, why the doctor stopping? I mean, because he looked like an alien. It wasn't like questionable. It was like he got deformed. He was the elephant man within the fight. So yeah, one of my favorite fights, hands down, for both of those fighters, to be honest. But yeah, I had Angulo winning, but and ironic that we saw another Heman-Tonin fight too. Shout out to that corner man too, by the way, because it never really impacted Lara.
Oh yeah. And Nopal, what'd you think about this fight, man?
Man, I just wanted to say that I've always thought that Angulo that Lara did something dirty to get out of that fight. This is what I thought back in the day because I saw the fight, but hearing Virgil Hunter saying that he got done. So, narrative wise, I always felt like a Lara did something dirty. But if, as I was able to rewatch this fight, you could see that left eyebrow was already swelling up, prior to that from all the right hands and, jabs and all that, so going back to the scoring, I scored it just like Sean, 86-83 before the stoppage to Angulo. And I think my scorecard was almost identical to Run PMC's. I gave Angulo round 3 because I gave Lara the first 2 rounds. Then I gave Angulo the 3rd round, and then he scored a knockdown on the 4th round. And then the 5th round, Erislandy Lara comes back, so I gave Erislandy Lara the 5th round. Then the 6th round, Angulo started getting better work in again, so I gave him the 10th. The 7th round I gave it to Lara, and then the 8 and 9 I gave him to Angulo. Of course, he scored the knockdown. So I gave Angulo rounds 3, 4, 6, and 8 and 9. So those are the rounds I gave him, and he scored 2 knockdowns. So it was 86-83. I think that by the 10th round, they were both. They both had taken, I think, almost equal amount of damage. I think that Angulo's damage was more accumulated to his left side of his by his eyebrow. I think it accumulated right there, and it just blew up with that last punch.
Hey, man, I saw it the way you did, Nopal, as well as Sean. Great fight. Great back and forth, and I guess Angulo must have been really hurting. He did quit, so Lara gets full credit for the win, but I had it close and clear for Angulo, and I could see why Canelo, after watching those 2 fights, accepted the fight against Lara. Like you said, Run, you said, hey, you might be seeing a different Lara in these fights. And I definitely did. I saw a guy who was comfortable in mid-range. I saw a guy who was interested in fighting on the inside at times when he wanted to. I also saw, a guy who, didn't always go on the back foot. He also was really good at using his physical strength to tie up. So he had a lot of versatility in these fights that, from what I recall, he wasn't using in the Canelo fight as much. He fought a different fight, and it could be the culmination of maybe taking some abuse in the Angulo fight. We'll see, man. But that was a very good fight. Thank you so much. And Nopal, do you have anything else, or anybody else have anything before we move on to what we're going to be scoring next week?
All right. I just need to know. Thank you, Nopal, for recommending that. That was great stuff. Does anybody feel the same way? Or in the chat, any of my brothers here, does anybody feel like that was the best Lara fight, the most exciting to y'all? It was just me here.
To me, man, yes, I would have to say yes, absolutely. And after this Canelo fight, this will be the last Lara fight I watched. Like I did see, and I think I barely remember. Like Lara did fight Trout. I mean, and if you like style matchups, hey man, go knock yourself out. But this will be the most entertaining Lara fight that I know that I'll ever see.
I think this is prime Lara we saw. I think his prime really lasted from Paul Williams, and then through the Canelo Alvarez fight. After that, I haven't really seen much from Lara. He did have a little resurgence for his herd, but I think this is prime Lara right here. And like styles make fights. I mean, we're scoring Canelo Lara next week, so we'll get to discuss that. But it was very entertaining. This was probably the most entertaining because it was very competitive. So that's why I would say, and it had, like I said, like what would we say the Bradley Provatnikov fight was Bradley's best performance? No, but it was prime Bradley and it was very entertaining. So
right.
Yeah, so it was awesome, and this is the first fight we did that was ended on stoppage, but it was almost to the end of the fight, so I could see why we did it too. But yeah, it was prime Lara, very good to see. It's a perfect lead up, very good for Chicano and No Paul recommending both these fights for the lead up for. Yep, there we go for next week, Canelo Lara. Very good, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, man. You know, I'm looking forward to this fight. I haven't scored it in a while, but I remember how I felt about it. We're hoping to have G Funky on, and he passed the test last time by finally giving Canelo 10-8 versus Trout when he got that knockdown. His bias might be fully gone. There's some other things I'd like to bring up, but I'm going to try to welcome him into Al Chile, you know what I mean, without hazing him, even though he's being all salty in the chat. But that's what I want, man, and I also know that Run also scored this fight initially for Lara. And, in my opinion, Laura's practically a Texan, so I think Gringo's compromised too, No, I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. Yeah.
I've scored it for reference. I've scored it every time for Lara, and it's only been 9-3-8-4. So it should be interesting. What we get next week, and I hope G Funky. I know he has the recent events in his family that he's taking care of, but it'd be nice if we could have him on the show, at least even if it's just for the rescore.
Oh, totally. And we might even have a special episode for this rescore. I think that there are some other people that might want to chime in on this one. And on top of that, I respect other people's opinions. I want to go on record and say that I've never had a problem with somebody viewing this as a win for Lara. Never have. You know what I mean? But I remember scoring this one for Canelo by how I score it. But I haven't scored this since we've been doing this controversial rescore segment every week. And I feel like I'm really starting to just narrow down how I score fights. So I'm looking forward to taking a look at this one, man.
Yeah, definitely, man. I can't wait. Just want to remind everybody respectfully that the rules are you can only watch it 3 times. Okay, but you can watch a singular round multiple times. You can only watch the whole fight 3 times. Throwing it out there.
No rules.
And G Funky here says Chicano Prophet talking about being biased. That's hilarious. Well, good. I'm glad you're licking your chops. Say what you got to say about this one, man. Because, sorry, go ahead. You got something to say, Ron?
No, I mean I'm just looking forward to it. I did forget to say this though. I had this in my notes. I overlooked for the Angulo Lara fight. The reason why Angulo got it was clear why Angulo got it wasn't a thumb why he got the hematoma. It was because this isn't against Carlos Vargas, but they had Carlos Vargas as the cut man when they should have had Stitch Duran, who usually works with Virgil Hunter, the greatest cut man out there. That's more of a dig at Chicano, though. So Carlos Vargas, all jokes. Carlos Vargas is a great cut man, but Virgil Hunter, Stitch Duran are the combo in that corner.
Nice, man.
That's a point.
And Ron, we're gonna need a good breakdown for this one, bro. Like a good setup. This is Canelo was taking care of some serious business as a young man.
Yeah, and then also since some of the things like I could bring possibly like some of the context, but like always feel free to chime in if you guys have some stuff because it's quite some time by that time, 8 years ago, but I'll definitely do my best to set it up to see where maybe these guys are. I think we'll focus on sort of where the mass exodus from Golden Boy is taking place at this time, where it's like boxing seeing every day it'd be like 10 fighters gone. So should be an interesting lead up next week.
Oh yeah. I'm looking forward to it, and look at G Funky, man, running his casual talk, man. This guy's ready to go, dude. I love it, dude. You can bring it on, man. I would say the price of admission is to finally give me your Valdez Conceição scorecard and tell me how you scored it for Valdez. Even though Canelo had more power punches landed, more thrown. There's a lot of ways we can look at this one, but we're just going to let you in real nice, G Funky, let you speak your mind. That's okay. And we're all going to speak our mind because this was one hell of a fight. Also, man, and it just crossed my mind, and G Funky's probably going to lose it when he hears this one. Like, in certain circles, certain Canelo circles, there's this idea that this concept of Canelo losing every single round against Mayweather is a myth, right? That's actually one of my favorite fights. But did Robert Guerrero do better? Like some people think, hey, you could give Canelo a couple rounds. This whole like he didn't win a single round. I don't know about that one. It might be one worth exploring. It's actually one of my favorite fights. Mayweather put on a clinic.
I gave Canelo 3 rounds in that fight, in the Mayweather fight.
Well, there you go. And I know you're objective, Run. So yeah, that's what some people say, man. They say about 3 rounds.
Yeah, it's because I think I think Floyd, when he fight, because you see when Floyd gets like, you saw it in the first Maidana fight, when he goes for that really wide stance, he didn't have a good training camp because he's like sort of just pot shy in that point. Because you saw that in the Guerrero fight, he was super wide with his stance, and then the Canelo fight, he was actually like doing his normal thing, just boxing. So you pick up on those little things.
Interesting. Sean, what do you remember about the Mayweather fight, man? Do we need to do that one first just to clear this up, or what do you remember?
I remember initially scoring that fight 9-3, but again, that's a long. I haven't looked at it since. I just felt like at the end I was disappointed. I remember talking with my brothers, Coach Reyes, actually Reyes Gym in Fort Worth, and talking to him and how sad he was when I was talking to him about the fight. He was like, "Yeah, man, it's like Canelo just gave up," and yeah, that's how we felt back then.
Okay, so we don't need to go there. That's good to know, man, because it's time for Honor and Glory, Canelo versus Lara next week, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what you all have to say, and I definitely will respect what you all have to say. So I know you're all going to bring it out Chile. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No, just another great show, man. Thanks so much for everybody checking us out, man. These brothers bringing, I love it so much. We'll be having some interviews drop in definitely tomorrow. Some Spanish interviews of Orlando City, Soledo, and Eric Morales. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you. In Spanish.
Awesome, man. Awesome. All right. Well, for the boys at El Chile, this is Chicano Prophet signing off. Peace.